Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have a Bachelor Nick Viall update. He responds to fan rumors. It's not exactly what people want it to be in that he doesn't respond to the specifics of those rumors. But I have to tell you, this might not be the response you want to hear. I generally agree with his take with what he's about to say. There have been some wild rumors regarding Nick's relationship. And it's like, look, he just had a baby. He's married. If any of those rumors were true and he and his wife were to work through them on their own, it's really none of my business. But as I've said, I'm only going to talk about it if he talks about it. And now that he's talking about it, we'll react to it because that's what we do here in the crazy world of the internet. So this was an easy choice for E! News to run with it. And I think Nick's going to understand this. It's the same reason people came after Joe Rogan with a lot of the COVID stuff because he's the biggest podcast in the world. It's the same reason people are, paying attention to Nick because he's got a very big podcast. Nick slams rumors about his relationship with wife Natalie Joy. Now, he doesn't get into the specifics, so let the guard down. Nick knows he and his wife Natalie are the subject of many an online rumor, and he's come up with a solution for tuning out the noise. Now, rather than read this article that sums it all up, they always say on the internet, show, don't tell. So, excuse me, I'm going to share with you the clip that they speak of from the Lady Gang podcast. I always love, there's so much that goes into the analytics and algorithm of YouTube. I just love it when someone just posts the name as the title, the most lazy post ever. But they have a really big podcast. I'm sure they could do a lot better on their YouTube channel if they did a little bit of, throw in a couple other keywords there. But either way, that's just my thought there. Nick doesn't do too many others podcasts, but here's what he has to say about not reading the negative press. And then I'm going to read the audience that's very upset by this. There's a real cesspool online, if you guys haven't been made aware. Now, look, I'll be the first to tell you if I have a valid criticism of a take of Nick's, I'll share it. His you can beliefs, deleting me from the Clayton conversation, not covering it, I think those are fair critiques. The way that he has, handled the talk about Gary Turner's late wife. I mean, those are valid critiques I feel entitled to discuss. He's also entitled to ignore my critique. That's fine too. Here's what he has to say about what he consumes and doesn't consume with regards to the rumors.
She's gotten much better.
Yeah.
His wife.
It takes a while to get that thick skin,
Oh, it's so hard. But listen, you will never be able, you can never have thick enough skin to handle whatever rumors are about you. And I'm aware of a ton of rumors about me, and I know that I'm unaware of 90% more because I don't read it. Yeah. I'll have, for example, I'll get this very kind of backhanded compliment from a lot of other reality TV stars, and it's just man, I'm so impressed with what you're doing. I want to do what you're doing. And it's just you don't care that people hate you.
He finds a way to compliment himself while also, no, I understand the point. You get other people that say, oh, it's so brave how you handle this or that. I haven't had to deal with online rumors to the extent of what I believe is mischaracterization or people expecting the worst out of you. You really can't handle it. I've obviously, if you've followed my channel, tried in the past to negotiate with it, kind of like a heckler. If you have a heckler in the crowd, you can shut them up or whatever. The problem is with these people online, they never die. There's always one behind the next. So it's almost not worth it. It's like Walking Dead. It's not worth it to kill the zombie because there's another one right behind it. You just have to avoid them.
I'm no, I do.
Yeah, of course.
I do.
How can you not?
I just don't read it. I'm unaware of the criticism, and I'm always, a lot of Bachelor alumni will, call me up and ask for advice, and they'll never listen. And they're just well, how do you do it? I'm I don't read my own press. I don't read my comments. I'm not on Reddit. I actively stay off of it. And I'm just unaware of things that people say.
You are an anomaly, though. Because the people who are drawn to reality television are people who never tire of seeing themselves on social media and what everyone's saying.
Good point. And also, I don't even just think it's that type of person. I think any of these negative commenters, like I've had this happen a few times where someone's commented something negative and then I've called them out and then they cower, they shrivel up like the wicked west of the east toes. Is it east or west? Either, you know what I mean? They just cower when there's any attention on them and they don't realize. And again, it's like, look, I get it. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. But what random anonymous people when exposed, like I always look back at Brianna Madia when she on her Instagram, she had all of these people in a snark subreddit calling her out and she exposed them and they cowered for the most part because their real identities were learned. And wouldn't it be a problem? Like take someone if they hate me. What if I knew that person worked at a job where they were spending an hour a day talking trash about me? This is a hypothetical. What if I called that job and was like, your employees are shitting on me while they're at work, while you're paying them? I would have no problem morally warning someone of that. Not to get them fired, but to get them like scolded. You know what I mean? I would absolutely do that if I found out there were people that were causing my family harm. I would go in that protective dad mode where I would want to be like, no, scorched earth, let's make this fair. Who are you? And people say, oh, Dave, you're doxing somebody. No, that's when you share something publicly. I would have no problem troll patrolling, showing up to people and going, oh yeah, really? Are you still brave talking that way? Let's treat each other as humans. I don't think people like that combativeness. And Nick here is just saying, just avoid it in its entirety, which again is also a strategy.
Like that is usually the formula for people who want to be on reality TV. It's like a little touch of narcissism in a way that you are like putting yourself out there, really risking a lot by putting yourself on a lot of these a lot. Yeah. But in return, you're willing to do it.
The serotonin pops of like, they're talking about me, they hate me, they love me, I can clap
back. For the press, for the fame, for the whatever. So it's like you are an anomaly in the sense that you really, truly, like, and after knowing you for 10 years, you really genuinely don't care about what's happening outside of your one little
Which
orbit.
I think is the only way you can continue doing the show with your wife and your baby's mother and have it be as successful as it is. Yeah. Because if you think about it, if you look at the other top 10 podcasts out there, and I said it when you walked in, like I am, and we are so proud of you. I remember when you first started the show and
this is an hour of ass kissing. By the way, I wanted to make fun of Nick for breathing heavily into the microphone, but listen to my baby. He's breathing so heavily. That was for me.
Like I've always, it's incredible what you've built. But if you look at the other podcasts out there, there's no husband-wife team. There's
Skinny Confidential.
I'm talking top 10.
Okay, so they get in this weird, and by the way, I don't think Nick would call the Viall Files a husband and wife team, but I love that Natalie's kind of got a seat at the table.
I'm talking like they do up there with Call Her Daddy,
but I'm sure that they deal with, I guarantee you that
for
Lauren,
sure.
I'm sure
they do.
Yeah, but it's like you guys are putting yourselves out there, even like talking about the wedding and all these things. It's tough,
like, you just gotta disconnect. You gotta stay offline. And truly, it's just like, think about it. It's just, and I said, and we've talked about this on this our podcast a couple weeks ago. I'm always blown away by the amount of public figures who are willing to promote their own bad press. It blows my mind.
Like who?
Everyone, right? And here's what I mean by this. It's just like, here's the thing. There's so much news out there. There's a zillion podcasts. There's a zillion streaming channels. The content is infinite. Like everyone, we live in a society that non-famous people are obsessed with their own lives. Everyone has, we have a main character syndrome epidemic going on in this world, right? So the truth is, truly, no one really gives a shit about you as much as they give a shit about themselves. When you go on social media, and you're just look at your comments or look at your DMs. Like no one looks at your comments more than you do.
100%.
And maybe your 10 like craziest fans.
Yeah.
And so, or
I don't even look at my comments.
And so like, again, I don't read Reddit, but like I know a lot of my peers do, right? And so Reddit, again, I understand if you go and look and you see those, holy cow, there's 30,000 people in this group, and it's like, it's just like 30,000 followers on Instagram. Not to like it's nothing.
So
you
many.
know? And
Oh.
it feels
It's
like
not,
a lot,
though.
right?
No.
In the grand scheme of things?
No, it's interesting because we get reviews and I'll be like, guys, we have to stop, blah, blah, blah. And Jack will be like, and Becca will be like, it was one out of how many millions of people?
Think about how many people listen to your show,
Yeah,
you know?
like,
and then
yeah.
also,
Here's where I agree with Nick wholeheartedly, although I could poke holes in his logic because I don't think he always takes this advice, but here's where I agree with him.
reading your comments just handcuffs you creatively, you know, because like you,
That's probably the most in-depth thing he's ever said. Reading your comments handcuffs you creatively. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're doing something wrong, you got to be careful, because I'm not saying people should cancel other people, but you might lose your audience if like you go full hard in one position and it's like read the room. So multiple things can happen. Take this in the stand-up comedy world. Don't judge every audience because they might be a bad audience and maybe you have a funny bit. But over time, if your bit's not working, you need to rework it because the room doesn't vibe with it. And the same can be said about your take regarding certain topics. Like Nick has, like he's like I said before, he's doubled down on the fact that reality stars are asking for it and don't need therapy and all these things. His beef with the UCAN Foundation, he really doubled down on that versus just like reading the room, listening and going, okay, maybe I've got a bias because of the own scar tissue I have. Same thing when he was blasted by Reality Steve's fans when he kind of like commandeered that weird interview they did and everyone sided with Steve. When he deleted me from their channel, people were like, what the hell is going on here? This isn't just not reading the room. This is more of like a sort of a scarcity minded thing. The reason Jared Freed has beef with him is because like he doesn't want to platform people on his podcast that aren't out to get him. It can be a very selfish way of looking at things. There's the world of abundance, and then there's the scarcity mindset. The scarcity-minded person wants to keep everything from themselves, whereas the abundant person wants to platform everybody. To be quite honest, Reality Steve is very abundant in that way, where he will have anyone on his channel if it's good for his audience. Nick won't. Nick won't have anyone on his channel if it's good for his audience. He'll find a way to make sure he's the main character that he talks about. That's just the scarcity mindset I see, but I still agree with what he's saying here.
you have to trust your own instincts.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for like fan feedback, but like no one knows what made you guys successful more than you guys, right?
We do.
And so but I'll see a lot of like Bachelor. I'll see like a lot of Bachelor alums. You can tell they're reading Reddit, right?
Yeah,
because
changing
all of a
themselves.
sudden they'll go on, and these people have.
A Bachelor alumni reading Reddit was one of the reasons why I had a lot of issues last week.
Have hundreds of thousands of followers, millions of followers in some situations, and all of a sudden you'll be like on Instagram and on your story, and then there'll be a post in their story being like, I'm just so tired of people saying this about me and blah blah blah, and this isn't true, and how could you say that? And I'm like, I did not know that people were saying this.
It brings attention to it too.
And like they're promoting their own bad
You're
press.
right.
All right, interesting. Yeah, don't promote your own bad press, which again, you can find a way to make that work for you. So I agree with him, but also when I promoted somebody who was like lumping me in with the manosphere the other day, part of my promotion was because I was making content out of it. And in that content making, I was engaging my audience to continue to write reviews and things like that. Like, I think it's very fair to see the ins and outs of what you do in the content game, if that makes sense. Either way, some of the comments that he doesn't want to read, someone said, for someone who literally makes a living off of commenting on pop culture topics, maintaining he hasn't heard about a lot of the rumors is insane to me. So no matter what he says, they're just not going to buy it. But again, I personally am taking the high road as far as I think the main rumor that people are discussing that he's not talking about, I think it's good that he's not talking about it. If he worked things out with his wife, he doesn't owe that to anybody. And people will say, well, actually he does, but that's the audience, a small section of them wanting to control the creator. And you got to be weary of those people. They'll want to demand apologies. I've always said this, I share my opinion on my channel, but there are very few times where I've demanded an apology. In the Clayton Echard case, I think his accuser's attorney owes me an apology for the way he said he would, look forward to my death and all of these crazy things he said about me. I think he should apologize, but I'm not going to demand him to do that because apologies when under a sort of duress or coerced really mean nothing to me. I think we all understand that. So again, interesting take, and I've probably never agreed with Nick more. essentially to say, do what you got to do. Maybe you'll lose some audience, and maybe you have to tell some of them to go F themselves, but you don't owe anybody a response regarding your private life. Even if you have a podcast, you don't owe them anything. Now, look, the only way Nick would owe his audience is if he, say, like, invested in a cryptocurrency, and then we later found out that it was a scam and he knew about it. And a lot of his, it's like there are circumstances where your audience can demand you comment on something and grassroots effort, but this ain't it. This is his private life. And that's it. Let me know what you guys think about that. Was that too level-headed for you? Surely this isn't that interesting for August here. He's happily dreaming about his mom's breast. Give me some of that milk. I'm useless to him. Yeah, all right. I'll talk to you guys later.